Dean Rusk disagrees with you, and he was the Secretary of State at the time, but that's fine.
The communist nations have exploited the turmoil of a time of transition in an effort to extend communist control into other areas of the world.
Thoughts on Dean Rusk and America's involvement in Vietnam? I know next to nothing about that.
Exactly.
Okay, so moving on, as I said, Peter Strzok, who was the lead FBI investigator into the spying operation by the FBI on Donald Trump, wrote a book. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as a writer of 5 books, people always ask me what it's like to be what's it like to be an author. I go, I have no idea. I'm just a guy who writes books. You don't write books. Not an author. Peter Strzok apparently thinks he is an author. Wrote a book and got the central thesis of his book entirely wrong, which is kind of incredible because he's the FBI agent assigned to spy on the Trump campaign using FISA warrants. Weird. Now, as I said, having been a former agent myself, if you ask me about any of my cases, the credit card fraud case, the credit master case, the license fraud case we have, I can tell you exactly what happened in each case, how we got it. My last case in Baltimore, my first case in Melville, Long Island, I remember how they all came in. Weird that Peter Strzok's investigating only the biggest case of, probably counterintelligence case of anybody's lifetime, and he can't remember basic details of how the case even started. Weird. We called him out on this the other day due to a tip we got on social media from, again, Hans Monkey. But this is written up by Jerry Dunleavy, the great Jerry Dunleavy in Washington Examiner. The story will be in the show notes. I strongly encourage you to read it. Washington Examiner. I got that wrong. Gee, did you ever? Peter Strzok admits he botched the timeline on the opening of the Trump-Russia investigation. This guy, ladies and gentlemen, is a tier 1 dunce. I'm pretty sure, given the penetration of our show into the populace at large here and how big it's become, someone probably sent him the clip the other day of us pointing out the obvious failures of his case and his book, how it's a lie, and now he's forced to go public and say, yeah, my book's wrong, I screwed the whole thing up. You screwed a lot of things up, Pete. There's a bad joke in there, too, which we'll leave out for another day. But from the Washington Examiner piece, yes, I do. Let's go back and just rewind a bit. How Strzok screws up in his own book, how he opened up his own case. Quote, Jerry Dunleavy. Strzok incorrectly claimed in his new book that Australian diplomat Alexander Downer was spurred to inform the U.S. government about a May 2016 conversation he had in a London wine bar with Papadopoulos, in which Papadopoulos mentioned that Russia might have dirt on Secretary Clinton after hearing then candidate Trump say in July of 2016, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails. But as the Washington Examiner pointed out, Special Counsel Mueller and Inspector Horowitz both concluded that Australia informed the United States of this conversation on July 26th, one day before Trump made the comment about Russia. Kind of a big mistake, no? Dude, that's at least a double. Come on. You could do the right thing. Thank you. That's at least a double, Motley, there. So the lead... This is unreal. The lead investigator in the case, this dunce, Strzok, writes a book. You know how many vets you go through with a book, by the way? There's usually an editor, then a copy edit, then another set of eyeballs, then the publisher will look at it, and then there's a legal review. I know, I've written 5 of them. The main premise of the whole book is wrong. We started this investigation into Trump because on July 27, Trump gave a speech and suggested that the Russians get Hillary's emails. And then the Australians came to us because they'd heard something similar, and they were so worried about this Trump speech that they came to us afterwards and told us about this conversation with Papadopoulos. No, dunce. The Australians came to you on July 26th, the day before the speech they hadn't even heard yet. Oh, my gosh, is this guy a moron? We have another screenshot from this, don't we? He says, Strzok, so now, listen to this. So now this is unbelievable, the stupidity here. So now he realizes he doesn't even know how his own case started. The Australians couldn't have tipped this off about a speech they haven't heard yet. So he says, quote, so I got that wrong. You think? So I was writing my book without the benefit of the notes. The FBI had those. Maybe don't write the book then, Pete. And the IG report had not been issued, Strzok said. He goes on, quote, what happened was there was a big dump through WikiLeaks that occurred prior to... See, now he's retelling the story. Now, Joe, here's version number 2 now. So WikiLeaks there was a big dump through WikiLeaks that occurred prior to the Australians notifying us. And it's absolutely as the IG report describes it. The Australians saw the WikiLeaks dump that prompted their memory of the conversation, Downer and Papadopoulos, and then they began the process of contacting us overseas and giving that information to us. My recollection is, and the reason why I mentioned that conversation about Trump's speech and Russia, are you listening, is when we finally, in the counterintelligence division, got that leak from the friendly foreign government. It was at the same time as Trump was making those comments, which were really concerning. Okay, so now this dunce can't remember how he started his own investigation. He's now suggesting, no, the Australians weren't tipping us off after the Trump speech because they tipped us off before the Trump speech. Now they were tipping us off because this Australian guy, Downer, this diplomat, spoke with Trump campaign associate George Papadopoulos. And Papadopoulos had mentioned something about emails, and WikiLeaks had dumped emails. Follow me, folks. I know following Peter Strzok, this moron's logic is really hard because he keeps changing his story. So disregard the old story that he lied about, because that story is obviously not possible. The Australians can't tip us off about a speech they hadn't heard yet, okay? They tipped us off July 26th. The speech was July 27th. The news story is, no, they tipped us off about this collusion scheme and the Russians having Hillary's emails and giving them to Donald Trump on July 26th, not because of the Trump speech now, but because of the WikiLeaks dump. And they got really nervous that WikiLeaks dump was the subject of a conversation between Downer and Papadopoulos that happened on May 10th. Wait, what? Follow the logic here by this dunce now. Let's you want to do a simple timeline? So Papadopoulos meets with Downer, the Australian diplomat, on May 10th. Okay? So if the Australians were so concerned about the WikiLeaks dump of the allegedly hacked emails from the DNC, Joe, this is a hard question. If Papadopoulos and Downer are talking about these alleged emails that the Russians stole from the DNC and the alleged hack, we're still not sure about that, wouldn't that have to have occurred before May 10th? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
If I was, it's not a trick question. I know you're puzzled because you're like,
I had to think about it for a second.
I know you because you're like, he's setting me up. I'm not setting you up. If I meet you in a restaurant, Joe, to tell you about emails that have been hacked from the DNC, wouldn't it make sense that the DNC would have had to already have been hacked? Okay, thank you. I know you. Give me the eye. Again, George Papadopoulos is not the Stygian witches. So if he meets with Papadopoulos and Downer, if the meeting happens on May 10th about this hack of the DNC, dreaded air quotes hack, because we're still not sure it was a hack, right? Then it had to have happened before May 10th. Well, that's interesting. Let's go to the EC from the Mueller report. This is the opening document. The Legat received information from the redacted deputy chief of mission relating to the hacking of the Democrat National Committee's website and server. Okay, here they go again. So they're opening the case saying this definitely had to do with the hacking of the DNC server, which George Papadopoulos told Downer about in the emails. Well, when exactly was the DNC allegedly hacked? Strzok can't get anything right. Hilarious. May 25th to June 1st, in that time frame.
New text messages have been released and declassified, and the Senate has released these through Chairman Ron Johnson of the Senate Homeland Security Committee and Chuck Grassley, Chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. They got these declassified messages that show that Peter Strzok was talking to Lisa Page 3 days before this, and I'll read it directly. There's three things I want to talk to you about, Lisa. One, that is blacked out. Two, are open counterintelligence investigations relating to Trump's Russia connections. And three, whether two things I bought frames for are okay to hang. But number two is on July 28th. And he didn't say we just opened. He said are open counterintelligence investigations relating to Trump's Russia connections. But these are the same folks who testified that they were not investigating Trump in Russia until Crossfire Hurricane was officially opened on July 31st. So it's not just that these are 3 days apart, Dad. No. It's that in this text message, he's referring to an ongoing, we don't know how far back it goes, but an ongoing investigation of President Trump.
The FBI caught, again, with misstatements about when this investigation started, how it started. And the fact of the matter is, and I think we have to be clear on this, they set this up. They put this in motion, they being the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the end result of that was, in my view, a complete fabrication to the American people, a 3-year investigation that garnered nothing, and it was a hoax from the beginning. And they all knew it. It was to take out President Trump.
They were doing the Trump-Russia bogus investigation long before they ever told Congress they officially did so. So, I mean, right there alone, they could be subject to problems because they may have been under oath in those testimonies. Yeah. But the fact is, we don't know yet how far back it goes, but certainly it's more than 3 days. I mean, it's probably at least a month or longer.
I think it's important to keep in mind that the tentacles of the Trump investigation began in 2015, arguably as a cover-up of Hillary Clinton's complicity in using a private email server account. And this was reported in 2015 by the New York Times. And so some of the players who were implicated, if you will, by the FBI, wrongly implicated, they were investigated by the FBI beginning in 2015.
Counterintelligence Director Bill Priestap did not want Peter Strzok leading that investigation because he said, look, Peter Strzok's gone around the chain of command and collaborated with Andy McCabe outside of the chain of command in the past. He's not the right guy to do this. But Jordan, why was Andy McCabe okay with putting Peter Strzok in charge? Jordan, because Andy McCabe was in on it too. It was his office in which the insurance plan was talked about it. So that was exactly the guy he wanted to lead it because they had already chosen where they wanted to end up, and now they were just trying to make the facts fit it.
President Trump tweeted about this. I would have too, if I was President Trump. And Peter Strzok replied to the president just about a couple hours ago and said, this is untrue. The investigation opened July 31st. Now, there's only one of these can be true, and it's the text message because
from Peter Strzok.
Yeah, from Peter Strzok, time-stamped, date-stamped.
A first-year law student could tear apart Peter Strzok's testimony. You cannot start an investigation on July the 31st, and that's the commencement of it. And then we have evidence from his own mouth, essentially, that he was engaged in an investigation on or before July the 28th.
Here's the bottom line. He's not telling the truth in at least one of these instances, and I'd bet my bottom dollar that he's not telling the truth when he tells the president it's untrue.
Only one of these can be true. Either there was no investigation about President Trump or the Trump campaign or Trump in general and Russia until Crossfire Hurricane opened July 31st, which is what Peter Strzok testified to, or his text message is right. I would say it's probably his text message.
To call something such as a government to be incapable of functioning or surviving, that's a pretty significant allegation to make 10 days before you even began to investigate someone. So that was before July 31st. I want to ask you in that first week, we'll go ahead and up it to 8 days. Between July 31st and August 8th, how many interviews did you conduct related to the alleged collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign?
So, Congressman, as you know, counsel for the FBI, based on the special counsel's equities, has instructed me not to.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. They can't tell you.
To answer questions about the ongoing investigation. I'm asking for a number. Russian attempts to interfere.
Agent Strzok, I'm asking for a number. I haven't gotten to the names. How many people had you interviewed between the beginning of it on July 31st and August the 8th? It's an 8-day time period. We're a week into an investigation. How many people had you interviewed?
Congressman, I understand your question. I appreciate it, and I would very much like to answer. But
I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. They can't tell you.
As I've stated, as you know, that counsel of the FBI, based on the special counsel's equities, have directed me not to answer any questions about the ongoing investigation into Russian attempts to interfere.
The gentleman will suspend and the clock will suspend. Mr. Strzok, you are under subpoena and are required to answer the question. Are you objecting to the question? If so, please state your objection. Mr. Strzok, are you objecting to the question? And if so, please state your objection.
Mr. Chairman, two things. One, I do not believe I am here under subpoena. I believe I am here voluntarily. Second, I will not.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. They can't tell you.
Based on direction of the FBI to me, based on that, I will not answer that question. Because it goes to matters which are related to the ongoing investigations being undertaken by the special counsel.
Mr. Strzok, you have not stated a valid legal basis for not responding to a question directed to you by a member of the United States House of Representatives, and you are overruled. Your testimony is essential to this hearing and to our oversight and information gathering functions with regard to the actions taken and decisions made by the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 2016 and 2017. I am specifically directing you to answer the question in response to our subpoena, notwithstanding your objection. Mr. Strzok, please be advised that you can either comply with the committee's directive to answer the question or refuse to do so, the latter of which will place you at risk of a contempt citation and potential criminal liability. You understand that. The witness will answer the question. The United States Supreme Court has recognized that it is unquestionably the duty of all citizens to cooperate with the Congress in its efforts to obtain the facts needed for intelligent legislative action. It is their unremitting obligation to respect the dignity of the Congress and its committees and to testify fully with respect to matters within the province of proper investigation.
Together we stand, one nation, one struggle and equation. We feel the relation of the past to the present frustration. Together we feel the guilt and the pain and the hatred they built. We see the legacy of history and the blood was spilled. Together we learned one history